We are live now.
Perfect. So we're live. Welcome everyone to the final tech workshop of this season for the Sway Summer Hackathon hosted on DoraHacks.io, where you all have the opportunity to build using the Sway smart contract language and Fuel. I would like to welcome Sarah with us today, who's a front-end engineer from Fuel Labs, to talk about building a front end with TS and Wallet SDKs. Welcome, Sarah. Before we get into the tech workshop, do you have any opening thoughts that you'd like to share with our builders over here watching us today?
Hi, thanks so much for introducing me. And I just want to say thanks everyone for tuning in and for being interested in Sway. If you ever feel stuck at any moment, just know that we have a whole team here who's like ready to help at any time. So post on our forum with any technical questions, and yeah, don't hesitate to reach out.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. So, yeah, with that being said, let's dive into the workshop. Sarah, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. Okay, so if you attended the last workshop I did on Monday, we built a really simple game with Sway, a Sway contract. And today we're going to build a really simple front end for that contract. So quick overview again, when I say Fuel, I'm referring to the Fuel blockchain. Oops. Sway is our REST-based domain-specific language, sort of like the alternative to Solidity that we use to write smart contracts. Fork is the equivalent of like NPM for Node or Cargo for REST. And FuelUp is our toolchain manager that updates the different versions of Fork and Fuel Core. And then Fuels refers to our two SDKs that you can use to interact with the Fuel network. So we have a REST SDK and a TypeScript SDK. And we're going to be working with the TypeScript SDK today. And really quick, just another overview of the dApp architecture in the Fuel network. So the EVM, your typical stack looks like you have a contract in Solidity, which you use Hard Hat or Foundry or some other framework to develop and deploy with. And you'd probably use Ethers.js or Web3.js to interact with that contract, and probably use the graph or your own custom indexer for an indexer system. And with Fuel, we have basically all of these tools in-house. So instead of Solidity, we have a language called Sway, which is sort of like REST and Solidity had a baby. We have FuelUp, which we'll be using to essentially just, you can use as a framework to develop and deploy your contracts. It has all the tooling you need here. We have SDKs for REST TypeScript, and we also have our own indexer system. So the dependencies and prerequisites for this tutorial are you do need to have FuelUp installed. Even though we're not going to be working on a contract, we're still going to need to build and deploy that contract. So you're going to have that installed, and I'll go over that in a second. You'll also need Node.js and NPM, and be somewhat familiar with React and TypeScript. So if you don't have FuelUp installed already, you can go to github.com/fuellab/FuelUp. You can also go to our website, which is install.fuel.network/latest, and you can get the command to install FuelUp right here. So assuming you have that installed, we also are going to be using the beta 3 toolchain. So assuming that you have FuelUp installed, you can use the command FuelUp show to see what your installed toolchains are. And I have the beta 3 toolchain set as my default. And if you don't, you should install this one and set it as your default. And you can find the commands for how to do that in the install section I linked earlier. Where is it? Install.fuel.network/latest. And install the beta 3 toolchain here. So just real quick, it's FuelUp toolchain install beta-3, and then set it as the default with FuelUp default beta 3. Okay, so now that we know we have everything installed that we need, we're going to clone this GitHub repo, and DoraHacks will share this link with you guys in the chat. So it's github.com/Sarah/Schwartz/sway-game-demo. And this will have the contract that we'll use to connect. So open up terminal again. And I'm going to go into my desktop and clone this repo. So git clone. And there's the link. And then we'll go into that folder, Sway Game Demo, and open it up in VS Code. So we have actually the front end here for you already, but we're just going to delete this for now, and we're going to rebuild it. Okay, and we have a README in here, which has some links for you. We have a chain config.json file, which we'll be using in a little bit to run a local node and local network. And then we have our contract folder, which has the game contract that we wrote on Monday. So if you weren't there for that and you're not familiar with the contract, it's a really simple contract that has 2 functions right here. Here's the ABI. So it has a function new player that creates a new player in the game. And that player looks like this. It has a level, which has a number, and a player type, which is either a superhero or a supervillain. Make this a little bigger. And then we also have a function where that player can level up and they can increase their level. So they start at level 1, and each time they call this level up function, they're increasing that level by 1. And one special thing about this function is that this one is payable. So that means that you have to send some sort of tokens. And for this particular function, you have to send the tokens that were minted in the new player function. So this new player function will mint 1 token to the sender, and to level up, they just have to send more than, a fraction, more than 0 tokens. Okay, so that's our contract. And the first thing we're going to do is create a new React app. So we're in this folder here, and I'm going to use this command npx create React app, and I'll call this Frontend. And then we're going to also add the TypeScript template flag here. So --template TypeScript. And that will create our new React app here. It's installing. And while that installs, the other thing we need to have set up is the Fuel wallet. So if you go to wallet.fuel.network, then you should get this documentation page, and it has a link to install our wallet on the Chrome store. So I already have mine installed here. It looks like this. It's an extension. So we're going to be integrating this wallet into our app. So we'll need to have it installed on your browser. And then the next thing to do to get started with this is in the For Developers section, you go to Getting Started and scroll down a bit. There is this TypeScript section. And if you were using just like plain HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and not TypeScript, you wouldn't have to like install anything. You could just sort of like use the window to connect the wallet. But because we're integrating it with our TypeScript React app, we're going to install the Wallet SDK and also install the Fuel's TypeScript SDK. So you can find this command right here in the Getting Started page and wallet.fuel.network. And so I'm going to go into my front end folder here and paste that command. And The Fuels SDK actually is on like the latest version, is compatible. The latest version of Fuels is compatible with the latest version of Sway right now. So because we are going to be using the beta 3 toolchain, that we're going to want to install a particular version of Fuels. So I'm going to use 0-43.1. And we'll install those dependencies. And the other thing we need to do is install or modify our tsconfig file and add the types for the fuel wallet. So it's on the same getting started page. We can just copy and paste this types section right here into our tsconfig file under compiler options. All right, so let's go into our app.tsx file and change some things here. So we can just get rid of all of the boilerplate React stuff here, get rid of this class name, and we'll just add like a simple H1 that says Sway game here. And get rid of these imports. And then the next thing we're going to do is create a folder called hooks. And we're going to add a couple of special hooks that we can use to interact with the wallet. So on the same getting started page on wallet.fuel.network, if you scroll down to with React section, you can find this use fuel hook and just copy this entire hook right here. And this will make it really easy to interact with the fuel wallet. So I'm going to make this file called usefuel.tsx and just paste all that in here. And then to check to see if it's working, we can copy this right here underneath the hook and add it into our app.tsx file. So we'll import this hook, use fuel, and then here you can say const fuel not detected equals use fuel. And down here I can say, if fuel is detected, then we'll have a div that says fuel is detected. And if it's not detected, we can say it's not detected. And we can just try out this hook and make sure it's working. Okay, so we can say npm start. And all right, fuel is detected. So I have the wallet installed and it's detecting the wallet. Awesome. Okay, so the next step is there's one more hook we're going to add, and it's on the connecting page in the wallet docs. So if you go to connecting under for developers and scroll down, there's this with React section, and you can copy this whole hook here. And it's called useIsConnected.tsx. And this example is actually wrong right now. We need to fix it, but essentially use the same kind of format here. So we'll import this hook. And call it here. Oops, is connected. Equals use is connected. And we can add another div around this. So fuel is detected, and then we can also check if the wallet is connected. So if is connected, then we can say you are connected. And if not, then we can say, or we can actually have a button to connect their wallet. So say connect wallet. And to connect the wallet, it's actually really simple. So we can just add a on click right here, and I'm gonna make this an arrow function, and we can just say fuel.connect and call that. Okay, so let's go back to our app, and it says I'm connected. Okay, so I think that's because I already have a connection set up with my local host. So in my wallet here, I'm going to go into connected apps, and you can see it says localhost 3000 right here. So I'm going to delete that. And all right, so now it says has the connect wallet button. Let's try it out. And it works. All right, so we're detecting fuel and we're connected with our wallet, and we have our wallet integrated. Awesome. Okay, so the next thing is we want to interact with our contract. So before we do that, we're going to have to deploy the contract. So one option would be to deploy it to the beta 3 testnet, but another option is you can run a local node and deploy it to the local node. And this is just a much faster process. I personally recommend it for development, and you can use the testnet for when you really want to test out what it's like to use the app. But if you're just trying things out, I think it's easy to use this local node configuration. So I already have this chain config JSON file here, and where you can find this is in the fuelbook.fuel.network. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's this for developers section, and there is this running a local node section 6.4. And you can find basically a copy of this chain config here for your reference. And this chain config is essentially setting up the settings for the local node. And the reason why we're including it here is because we want to fund our Fuel wallet with some test funds on this local node. And the way we can do that is through this config. So right now, it's set up to my wallet address, but you're going to want to set this up to your wallet address so you can have your wallet funded. So the way you're going to do that is there's actually a couple ways. So one way you can do it is in your Fuel wallet, you can just copy this address right here, and we can use the SDK, the TypeScript SDK, to convert that address into the hex address. So what's going on here is there's two different types of addresses. There is this address that starts with 0x that most people are familiar with, your typical Ethereum address. We also have a special type of fuel address, and instead of 0x, it starts with fuel. And you can convert between these two addresses, but for the chain config specifically, you need this 0x type. So right now you have to do a little conversion to set that up. And so to do that, we're going to import wallet from fuels. And we can say const my wallet equals wallet dot from address, and then paste in that fuel address in quotes here. And so now we have this like wallet object, and we can get the B256 type address from that. So we can just console.log wallet address And we can say my wallet dot address dot to B256 and call that. And that will convert this fuel address into the correct format that we need. So I'm going to run this app again, and we'll see, we should see that address logged here. So, okay, here's our wallet address. And in the chain config.json file in this coins array, you're going to want to replace the owner here with your address. And one thing that is also different that I changed here, if you compare it to this documentation reference, is the amount. So the amount here is like maxed out of, it uses this, these like hex values to determine the amount of ether it will fund your wallet with. So I brought that down a little bit to, it's a more readable value, because this is essentially like a giant number. So if you want to give yourself, you know, 1 million ETH or something, you can do that. I set it a little bit down. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we have our chain config set up. And we want to start a local node and then deploy our contract. So I'm going to open up a terminal in the parent Sway Game demo folder, and also go into the contract folder. And in this folder where the chain config.json file is, you're going to want to copy this command right here, fuel core run database type in memory, and then add one more flag to that, which is going to be referring to this chain config.json file. And you can find that flag on the bottom here. It's under a different command. We're going to mix these two. So it should say fuel-core run database type in memory, and --chain is /chain config.json. And remember, you're going to have the Beta 3 toolchain installed as your default here. So this will start up the local node, and it's running on port 4000. And then in the contract, I can say fork deploy -- unsigned, and this will deploy the contract to that testnet and give me this contract ID. So now I can copy this contract ID, and back in my app.tsx file, I can add that as a constant. So contract ID equals, in quotes, this contract that just deployed here. Okay, so now that the user can connect with their wallet, they're going to want to call the functions in our contract. So there are two functions. There's new player and level up. So we'll create some buttons for those. So it says you're connected. Oops. Instead of you're connected, we're going to add these buttons. So the button that says new player, and oops, another button that says level up. And we'll add an on click here and write these functions above. So new player and level up. Okay, so this function is going to be async. So async function new player. And another one for level up. Okay, so before we can connect to our contract, there's actually one more thing we need to do, which is generate the types from our ABI from our contract. So in the contract folder, once it's built and deployed, there's this out folder, out/debug folder. And we have this game-abi.json file here. And we're going to want to import this file or basically use this file to generate types. And we have a special way you can do that. So if in the Frontend folder I'm going to use this command npx fuels type gen. And then there's two flags you have to pass in here. It's input and output. So -i is input, and essentially just put the path for this ABI file. So because I'm in the front end folder, I'm going to say /out/debug/game-abi.json. And then the second flag is out, which is -o, and this is going to be the output folder that it will add to the front end. And so I can say it's going to be /source/types. Okay, so now in the front end folder and under source, we have this new types folder, and you don't have to modify this at all. It's just some types that are generated for you based on what's in the contract. And we can import the ABI factory from this types folder. So if you go to index.ts in here, what's exported is called game factory or game ABI factory. And so that's what we're going to import here. Oops. Game ABI factory from /types. And the way we're going to connect to this contract is, first we're going to use the fuel instance to get the current account. So we can say const account equals await fuel.current account. And then we can get the wallet from here. So const wallet equals await fuel.get wallet with this account. And then finally, to connect to the contract, we can say const contract equals, and then use this game ABI factory dot connect method to pass in our contract ID and the user's wallet. And so what this does is whenever we call the contract now, it's going to call it for the users from the user's provider with this fuel wallet. So now we have our contract instance, we need to actually call the function. So to do that, we can say const response equals await contract dot functions dot new player. And this doesn't quite actually call the function. To do that, we need to add this call method. So we're getting this new player function, and then we're going to call it. And finally, we can console log the response here. But there's actually one tricky thing where if we use this function right now, we're going to get an error because inside this function, we are minting, in the new player function, we're minting tokens to the sender. So in the fuel network, that means a special thing, which means that it's going to produce an extra UTXO. And essentially, we need to account for that when we call here. So we need to tell the SDK that this function is going to expect some variable outputs, is what we call it. So you can modify the transaction parameters with this txparams method, and then pass in an object with the parameters, and you can see the different types here. You can modify the gas price, the gas limit, and variable outputs. And variable outputs is what we're going to add here. So we're going to say the variable outputs is 1 because we're sending tokens to one address, and it's going to create this new UTXO for them. Okay, so now we have our new player function. The level up function is going to work really similarly. So Ideally, we can abstract away some of this code, and so we don't have to repeat it, but here I'm just going to repeat it. So we are setting up our wallet or account and wallets, connecting to the contract. And then instead of new player here, we're going to call the level up function. And this function doesn't mint tokens to the player, so we don't want this transaction params section or method. But instead, this function is payable. So we're going to be sending these tokens that we got minted to us. We're going to have to send them back to level up. And so the way we do that is we have another method here called call params. And this is one of the cool things about Fuel and Sway is that if you've developed in Solidity before, you probably know, like, if you want to send a token to someone, like on Ethereum, you're not directly sending that token in the transaction. But here we're directly sending, just like you would send ETH, we're directly sending our token. So again, we're going to pass in an object here into the call params, and we're going to use the forward key to forward the a certain amount to the contract ID, or sorry, not to the contract ID, but using the asset minted from this contract. So the asset ID that goes here is equal to the contract ID because the contract minted these tokens. And so to get the amount, we can say amount equals, and we can just, so because we have minted, see, it's like 1 billion, tokens, which is really one with, these are like decimals. Let's send a little bit less than that so we can call the function multiple times. And so I'll just take away a 0 here and say it's like 0.1 is the amount. And oops, this should be one line up. Here we go. So here's the amount, it's like 0.1 tokens. We have the response, which is functions that level up, and we have the call params, and we're calling this. And this response, actually, instead of logging the whole response here to get what is returned, so the response will have a lot of information about the transaction, but to get the value returned, which for this function is the player struct, we're going to use response.value. And same here, to get the level returned, we're going to say response.value. And then because this is a number, we're going to use this toNumber method to make that readable for us. Okay, so we have these two functions now. We have buttons for them. Let's try it out. So we still have our Fuel node running, and our contract is deployed. So it's really important because otherwise, if we try to interact with this right now, it won't work if the node isn't running and the contract hasn't been deployed. So let's say I accidentally, stopped this and I didn't realize I needed it to test out this front end. It's really easy. You can just run the same command again and then redeploy the contract. And it will give you the exact same contract ID as long as you didn't change anything in the contract. So we don't need to update this here because you can see it's the same contract. All right, so let's test this out. So we can say npm start. Fuel is detected, and we are getting our buttons. We have a wallet address. We'll say, okay, new player. And okay, we got an error here. So if you get an error, it's most likely a version error. So let's see, 43.1. Let's try this again. Selection, contract not found. Okay. So here's our contract ID. Should be the same here. And just see if reinstalling this helps. Oh, I see. So here we need to change this to specifically version 43.1, and it was installing, anything above that. So I'm going to edit that right here. Let's reinstall. And okay, hopefully this works. Okay, contract not found. Looks like there's some error. Let's try to figure out what's going on here. I'm going to, just to see, can debug this, comment this out and paste the version I have on GitHub. Okay. All right, well, there's, let's see. I'm not sure what exactly the difference is right now, but let's just try cloning and then seeing if we can get the front end to work. So demo, clone this again. Oops. Frontend, okay. And I still have my node running. Oh, you know what? Okay, it's actually not our code. I missed a step. So, all right. Big important detail step here is we need to make sure our wallet is on the correct network. All right, my bad. So you go to your wallet. Right now, this is connecting to the testnet beta 3. So the reason why I couldn't find our contract is because it's locally deployed instead of on the testnet. So we need to add our GraphQL endpoint for our local node instead. So the way you can do that is to open up your wallet again, and then there's this testnet beta 3 section or button right here, and you can add a new network. And this is going to be your local host /4000/GraphQL. So it should automatically detect it for you, and it's called local testnet. We're going to add that. And now we're in our local testnet. Okay. So just to be safe, we're going to clear this, start a new node, and redeploy the contract. And start our front end. And let's see. So the issue right now is that our this wall isn't funded yet for whatever reason. So let's see, are we running with our chain config? And this is our wallet address. And you should have funds here. So let's try adding the network again. And okay, for whatever reason, this local config is not working. Let's make sure we're getting the command right. So we're in the right folder here. Field core command, chain.json. Okay, so for whatever reason, this local testnet is not working. But if it was, I know these functions will work. Another option is if you don't want to work on a local testnet or you're having issues with that, you can deploy actually to the real testnet. So we can try doing that real quickly. So if we go to Developer Quick Start, there's a really great guide for deploying and developing, for deploying your contract. You'll have to set up the fork wallet, and then you use this command here. So fork deploy node URL beta 3 is deploying to beta 3, and you have to have your fork wallet set up. So let's see if we can do that real fast. So say fork wallet accounts. Paste in my account and provide this signature. Sign. And here's the command fork wallet. Okay. Dash dash account 0 transaction ID. And okay, what is it? Fork wallet, I think sign. I missed that. Oops. Fork wallet sign. help. So fork wallet documentation is probably the best place to look for this. We're unfortunately running out of time. Let me see if I can get this deployed really fast so we can test out our contract. Okay, got this, our signature. And we added some random salt here, so we have a new contract ID. So let's update this contract ID. And now on our front end, we need to switch to the beta 3 testnet. And okay, we are calling our new player function. And here's our response. This is our old error. And we got player with level 1. That is a superhero. Nice. And we're going to level up now. So we're sending 0.1 of our asset. And the response should be 2. All right, so now we're level 2. And if we go into our wallet, you can see there's unknown assets here. I'm not sure which is which, but I did this same thing earlier, but we have 0.9 of one. So if we level up again, we should have 0.8 of this token that we have. So now we're level 3. And yeah, we now have 0.8 of our tokens we minted. Yeah, so we went a little bit over time, but thanks you so much for sticking around. I'm sure I was just missing like a small little thing with running a local node, but you should be able to run it locally and everything should work for you. But yeah, thank you so much. And please reach out if you have any questions about any of this. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Sarah. It seems like everyone in the chat is up to speed with you. So yeah, thanks for demonstrating a great session. And yeah, maybe if you want to share your Telegram for anyone who wants to reach out, feel free to do that.
Sure. Yeah. I think the best way for you to reach out with questions is on our forum. So our forum, I can show you right here. It's forum.fuel.network. And we have like sections for each of the different tools we have, and that should be shown to all of our teams. So instead of just reaching out to me, you can reach out to the whole Fuel team.
Perfect. So yeah, forum.fuel.network is where you'd want to go if you have any questions. And about the submission process or the hackathon in general, feel free to reach out to me at Mishika251 on Telegram or Twitter, and or the DoraHacks official handle, which is DoraHacks official on Telegram. So yeah, and I wish everyone all the best, and thank you, Sarah, for this. We'll quickly wrap up before further ado. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thanks. Bye.